Hi guys, what's up? It's Micah and welcome back to my channel. And today I'm very excited because I'm gonna be making a cooking video because I finally got a portable stove. So today I'm gonna be making Kare Kare, which is a Filipino peanut stew. And usually this has beef, but I've made this recipe using pork before, pork belly, and it turned out pretty well. So today I'm going to be using beef, and specifically I'm going to be using oxtail, which I have boiling in the back just to get rid of the scum on the oxtail. So I have here about 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, and I'm gonna start by adding my aromatics to the pot. So I'm going to add about half of a red onion. I diced it as small as I could so that my peanut stew will be nice and creamy. And I don't really want to get any color on this. I just want to make it nice and soft. Now I'm going to be adding 3 cloves of finely minced garlic. For kare kare, usually we use annatto seeds or annatto powder, also known as achuete. So you can buy it in the Mamacita's packet right here, so it's ready to serve. This actually is mixed with a little bit of cornstarch, which will help thicken your sauce. So I'm gonna be adding about 1 tablespoon of the powder. Really has not much flavor, but this is what's gonna give our kare kare a nice bright orange color. So this is mostly used for color. Once my onion and my garlic have softened in my pot, I'm gonna be adding a little bit of shrimp paste. So this is gonna add really good and salty umami to this flavor. This isn't really traditional for the kare kare. Usually the shrimp paste is served with the kare kare, but I like to add just a little bit into my dish. And now I'm gonna be adding about half of a cup of smooth peanut butter. What you have now is a really rich peanut stew. So we're gonna dilute it with a little bit of water. Let's start with about 4 cups of water. Add another 2 cups of water. I usually don't really cook and measure out my things. I kind of just taste as I go along. To sweeten up the dish, I'm going to be adding a little bit of brown sugar. I'm going to be adding about 2 heaping tablespoons of brown sugar. I'm going to add some pepper. We don't have to add much salt to this because it's already salty from the shrimp paste. Now I'm going to be adding 2 beef bouillon cubes. So this is just extra beef flavor basically, especially if you don't have time to make your own beef stock. So I'm adding about a tablespoon of cornstarch with some water. So this is called a slurry, and this is basically something you put to thicken your sauce. So the 1 tablespoon of cornstarch should thicken this up a little bit, but towards the end I'm going to be adding probably another 1 or 2 tablespoons of cornstarch just so I can get the perfect thickness for my sauce. So the cut of beef I'm going to be using, like I said in the beginning, is oxtail, and oxtail is a pretty rich and fatty piece of the beef, which is perfect for this stew. So I highly recommend using the oxtail, but if you do use oxtail, you have to boil it prior to putting it into your stew because it can be tough, and also there's a lot of scum in the oxtail, so you don't want that in your kare kare. So I boiled this for about 30 minutes, and I'm just gonna add it into the stew so that it could be nice and tender. So my oxtail is in my pot, and I'm just gonna cover it with a lid so that it could simmer for some time. So my peanut stew has been simmering for about 20 minutes with the lid on, and now I'm just gonna add in my tripe. So usually tripe takes a while to cook also, but The tripe that I have is very thin that you don't really have to boil it off prior. But if you have the tripe with the deeper ridges, I suggest boiling that before you add it into your stew. So while this was simmering for 20 minutes, I actually added 2 more cups of water just to keep it nice and saucy and not dry. So in total, this is 8 cups right now. And also, it's getting a little bit thicker, but it's still very soupy. So I'm going to add 2 more tablespoons of cornstarch mixed with water. And this should be about the right ratio of sauciness I want it to be. So I'm gonna let this simmer for another 20 minutes with the lid on, and then we'll see how it looks. Okay, so my kare kare has been simmering for another 20 minutes, and I actually added another tablespoon of cornstarch to get it just a little bit thicker. So right now, this is what it looks like. Since it's been simmering, I'm gonna add in eggplants to this. I'm using the Chinese eggplant just because this is typically what's used in the kare kare, and I also find it's a bit sweeter than your typical Italian fat eggplants. So this is 4 of them, and I cut them into thirds, and then I split those thirds in half so they're nice, kind of like this shape. So I'm just gonna dump them straight into our peanut stew, and I like to cook the eggplant in the stew because the eggplant is kind of like a sponge, and it just soaks up all of the flavor, and it also gets kind of nice and mushy. I like the eggplant a little bit more mushy. I'll just put the lid on for a couple minutes, that way it can get nice and tender. I'm gonna be blanching some long green beans into a pot of boiling water. And I also have here a bunch of beautiful bok choy from my grandparents' garden. This is also typical of what's in a kare kare dish, which I'm also gonna be blanching in the water. Okay, so my kare kare is finally finished, and I just plated myself a bowl here with some of the vegetables, and it's really good. The broth is nice and creamy. It's rich but not too thick and overbearing, and it's the perfect peanut flavor without being too peanutty or too watery. And I think the sweetness is just fine. This is perfect with a bowl of plain white rice. That way the sauce will just go all over the rice. Eggplants are cooked perfectly, and they're soft and sweet and tender, and they soaked up a lot of that sauce. Bok choy is good. It's still crunchy and very juicy. The oxtail has a lot of flavor. You can taste that fattiness, and it's tender because it's been boiling for a while. If you guys are new to Filipino cuisine, I highly recommend making kare kare. It's a great peanut stew. It's rich, it's creamy, there's a lot of flavor in there, and the vegetables are great, so it's pretty healthy too. Please try out my recipe. Let me know how your kare kare turned out and how you liked the ratio of my ingredients. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!